Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out once again to Bear Nation for tuning in to another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I am your host, Rob Napoli. The Bear Necessities is a podcast where we sit down with entrepreneurs, ecosystem partners, and innovation folks to talk about what it takes and means to launch, create, and scale business across the world. We talk about the journey and the challenges of being entrepreneurial minded and how that translates into your journey, giving you the tools and knowledge to overcome challenges that you may be facing in your life's journey. The Bear Necessities is part of the Rise Up Media family, and we thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get into the show. If you hadn't already heard about it, or you don't already know, my new book, The Social Soul, How to Master Your Personal and Professional Brand with Intentionality and Authenticity, is out now. You can find it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Go check it out, purchase a copy, let me know what you think, leave me a review. I appreciate y'all for the support. Can't wait to hear from you what stood out the most. Hi y'all, we're back again for another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I'm your host, Rob Napoli. Excited to be here with my guest. And this guest that I have today, I met him at a business and bourbon event. Shout out to Ronell Richards for putting that on in DC. September of last year, and it was a blast. I was on a panel. Dale was one of the speakers before the panel, and he was sharing his story, and I just felt connected about his journey and how he became an entrepreneur and wanted to share his story. So my guest today is Dale Walls, and Dale, at the age of 17, was lost in life without purpose or direction. An only child of a broken home, he was living in his grandmother's attic, and there was a time in his life when he was being stitched up following a bloody street fight that he agreed to attend a week-long boot camp that was hosted by the American Legion and ran by the U.S. Marines. This experience set him on a lifelong path in leadership and high performance, which followed an honorable enlistment. He's now a veteran Marine, Sergeant Walls, and he returned back to a small town where he founded an IT service company called Corsica Technologies. And this is where it got interesting, is he built this amazing company that grew to be one of the best in class across the whole U.S. And after 2 decades of growing it to an 8-figure revenue and making multiple acquisitions, he then sold the company with a successful exit and dedicated his life to founding the company he now has called The Lion's Guide, where he spends his day fulfilling his passion to help others learn high performance and leadership skills, apply it to their life so they can achieve not just professional, but personal goals. So I love a lot to get in here, Dale. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being a part of Bear Nation. Say what's up for the listeners out there.
Yeah, man. No, honored to finally hop on here with you and chop it up. You were a guest over on my podcast, and it was awesome. You know, my team was like, that's one of the best ones. So I was excited to get on here with you and chop it up as well, man. Thank you.
I'm excited, and I got my Lion's Guide thermos mug, which I use all the time now, which was an amazing gift. Thank you to you, Dale. And that was such a fun episode. And, you know, I'm really excited to get into this. And I want to talk about your past for just a little bit, because that story is powerful, right? So tell me a little bit about that experience, right? You're sitting there bloodied up from a street fight. You know, what kind of happened and what was that impetus to say, yes, I'll do this boot camp, I'll check this out, that just changed the trajectory of your life? Like, what, when you were sitting there, what were you thinking? What was that experience like?
Yeah, you know, I think up till that point, and I think this is a big testament to like a lack of a father figure in one's life, right? Like, I'm a young, growing boy. You know, both of my grandfathers had passed. Actually, in my grandmother's house I was living in, my grandfather was there, but he was incapacitated from a stroke from like 85. Mm-hmm. So a part of my growing up is I had someone that was disabled, wheelchair restricted, like you couldn't feed themselves, mm-hmm. type of someone you had to care for in the home. That was my grandfather. Really just didn't have that type of role model, right? So what does a young man do? Like, you're the asshole. You're the one that's talking shit. Mm-hmm. Like, you're causing trouble. You've got no real hand to guide you. And that was me. I mean, I'm getting raised by 2 women, one of which my grandmother, the other's my young single mom. My mom had me at 17, mm-hmm. man. So she was young, trying to figure her shit out. And so I never did anything criminal. Or I'll be clear about that. I wasn't out doing, but I was mischievous. Like I was, testing the
Yeah.
world, in a in a fun way. I'll say I had a lot of fun, but certainly wasn't on a path. Well, anyways, I had to learn that the stuff I was doing, because I didn't give a shit about me,
Yeah.
where I was going or whatever. Like it was in that night in the hospital, like just kind of checked me that the stuff I was doing was bigger than me. It wasn't just affecting me and I didn't care, seeing my mom kind of, I think really upset, just kind of like at her own loss. Like, what am I going to do? Like, and she kind of just asked me like empathetically, said, hey, will you go do this boy state thing? Cause we had gotten a letter in the mail and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Like it was just an honest request of her, kind of like, I don't know if it was like a thought of like, yeah, it was like a helpless kind of request for me to go do it,
I think that's, it's as kids, we like to push the boundaries on things. And sometimes, especially younger, we don't always realize that our actions have consequences. And it sounds like this is the first time that kind of growing up, and as everyone is, I'm not a parent yet. And I can only imagine how hard it is. My parents were divorced, and I watched them raise 4 boys. We raised a lot of hell as well, right? I can only imagine, the food bill alone, not to mention us fighting and, being a twin, like it's constant competition. You don't always realize that. And as you get older, you realize, everyone's doing the best they can to guide us and lead us and do these things. And there's always that kind of moment when you realize, holy shit, I'm responsible for my actions. And that kind of felt like kind of a moment of clarity. So you attended this, and what was that boot camp like? Like, what was it about that boot camp that you're like, I felt a calling to enlist?
I don't remember a lot about the week, to be honest. It's apparently there's a Netflix show. I haven't gone back and watched it, kind of like that plays out the boy state thing. But all I recall was like, so we all got a Marine assigned to our little platoon. And we have to stand duty, which means we stand guard throughout the night. So we're kind of emulating what happens in the actual Marine Corps, which we do there as well. And I was just sitting there talking, honestly, to a half-drunken corporal, just kind of, and he's picking on me, going like, why are you here? What are you doing with yourself? And he just kind of, I would say, challenged me to do better, I literally left there. That was during the summer. I left there and I depped in, which means I did a delayed enlistment program with the Marine Corps. So I was enlisted in the Marines through my senior year of high school. It just completely flipped. Like, I'm all of a sudden my grades are better because I had something to strive for, right? I guess that was the big change, right? I had nothing that I was striving for, but the minute they gave me like, hey, you can be a Marine, and I had something to go after and have a standard based on, like that was it, and that's what I focused on.
That's awesome. And what was that experience like for you in the Marine Corps? What were you assigned to do? Like, because you got into systems engineering through the Marine Corps. So how did you find that as a passion of yours, and kind of what were you doing with your role within that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of my joining the Marines is, one, I didn't have, like, no one in my family had gone to college before me, so there wasn't a college fund or anything like that. But I ended up getting something like $50,000 worth of college money by enlisting through the GI Bill and sign-on bonuses or whatever. But I knew I didn't want to go to school. But this is 98 when I enlisted, right? So we're playing Doom over dial up, we're testing, this world, and I enjoyed that, and I saw a future in it. So I just wanted to go straight to get my OJT, like get a career. I wanted at a minimum at the end of 4 years, have money for college and a career I could walk into, as well as earn the title, right? So there was kind of all of the above. And so I tested and earned that job at a time I was fortunate enough where being a techie was not compartmentalized as it is today, right? I learned how to pull fiber, build web servers, build Exchange and Active Directory domains. Like all this technology was just coming, and I was there at a fortunate time where I had to know it all. And so that really set me up for success for what I did after the Corps.
People don't realize, man, you were in the Corps during Y2K, right? 98 to I think 2002-ish. So you saw that we didn't have this specialization of technology. So it was kind of like, we were building stuff, but I wasn't always sure what we were building and what the evolution was. I think that's a really cool time to be alive and experience. It was funny because I posted a picture on my Instagram yesterday about, '90s, being a kid in the '90s, and some of my Gen Z friends were just laughing like, yo, that style, like, growing up on the playground type look. And it just, you realize there was so much that happened in that time, and it was a great time to really experience a lot before the specialization. I think specialization things is great, and we need that in today's world. But I'm glad that I got to see the evolution of that, and me personally got to experience a lot. So you went to the core, and did that, and you came out as assistant engineer, and you eventually founded a company. So when you're coming out of the core and thinking about what the hell you want to do with life, coming from being 17 in a bloody street fight, not really having any direction, to now having direction, why the fuck did you just decide to start a company? Like, what was that impetus that you'd be like, oh, now I can start a company and be an entrepreneur? What was that like for you? Or what was that? What did you see in the
You
market?
know, again, no real experience in that area, right? So it wasn't like my dad had a business or anything, right? Like I didn't know anything about starting a business per se. But while I was in, through networking, my wife worked for like a leasing company down in Carlsbad. And, I was coming across folks that, it's like when you're a doctor, I would imagine, right? You run into your buddy's a doctor. You go, hey, man, my shoulder,
Yeah.
well, as a tech, you get the same thing. And back then it was like, hey, Dale, you're a tech, right? Like, and this will date me, right? Why is my BlackBerry, like my calendar here doesn't look like that on my desktop? And, I have to do both. And I could do my little magic and boom, like now I'm a hero. And I enjoyed that, right? So I found myself before I got out, like that this was my side hustle. So like the story is still true today, right? You hear in entrepreneurship, right? You start your hot side hustle, as it grows, you find a comfortable breaking point, you make it your main gig or whatever. And I guess reflecting back, like that's what I did. I did it on the side, was making money. And when I was coming up on my end of enlistment, I told my wife, I said, if you're going to drag, because she drugged me back to Maryland kicking and screaming, right? I was in San Diego County. You don't need to think about the weather in San Diego. It's going to be 75 and
Mhm.
sunny, right? Like, so I got brought back to small town Maryland, kicking and screaming. So I was like, look, if we're going back, I'm going to start a
Mhm.
business. I'm going to take this. And I came back, I incorporated, I still went to work, I went to work for Department of State for a while. But I really just enjoyed taking my skills and helping other
Mhm.
people. It was, I just enjoyed it. Right. And I'm not a techie guy, right? My company ended up having 200 people. I had plenty of techie guys that would come in and go, hey boss, do you see this great new tech? I was like, no. But what excited me was what we could do with it to help other
Yeah.
people. That in reflection, I've learned over the last 2 years since being out of that was what I enjoyed most was helping people with what I
Yeah.
knew. I can make your laptop stand up and do a backflip. Yeah. But I don't get out of bed to go make your laptop do a backflip, right? It was how can I help you solve your problems, have a better business,
Yeah.
get more done, et
Well, that's
cetera.
awesome. I think, through that experience, you start learning what did drive you, and it was always helping others and serving, right?
Yeah.
And so, did you ever think when you started a company that you would grow it to have 8 figures in revenue, 200 employees? Like, it was quite a journey over what, 18, 19 years?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from the time of the sole proprietorship, that was like 2001 through, I sold the company in 18. I retired out of the business in 20. So yeah, 18, 19
That's
years.
uh, to see that growth. You acquired multiple companies, you kept growing, never having this experience. What was you talk about you were wanting to help others. What was your impetus for continuing to grow the business? And as you started to build a team of 200 plus people, how did that change your mindset of leadership and helping others? Because it's easy to help others is like it's a side hustle or like a one-man team, or as you build up a team, a small team. But once you start getting into 50, 75, 100 plus employees, I'm assuming, I've never managed that many people. Your mindset has to change about what leadership is. So how did that change
Yeah.
you in your ability to be a leader?
Yeah, it went from, leading a small team and kind of like hero leadership, you're running through the walls, you're taking the team with you, you're teaching them, to what I look at as leading leaders, right? So I still had to embody the essence of the culture of the business as a whole. And, with technology today, especially through COVID, because I was there, first half of 2020, using Zoom and getting out there and talking to the team. I had been doing that for last year because the companies I was acquiring in the last 18 months I was there, they were geographically dispersed around the country. So certainly traveling more, but doing more like recording and posting and stuff like that to talk to the company more. But I spent my days, as far as what changed, was now I spent my days leading the leadership team and helping them solve problems, having one-on-ones, helping them, vision cast and everything, just helping them be better leaders, so to speak.
I think that's really powerful because a lot of times what I've noticed in my own leadership journey, leading others is great and it's really powerful, but teaching others to lead is really hard at times because not everyone is like you. And so you have to adapt that leadership mindset of how do I help you be the best leader for your personality, for your team, with your skills, right? How do I give you guidance to guide others? And so that I think is seemingly really tough. And as I've been coaching and learning to, really getting into coaching entrepreneurs and coaching leaders and scaling businesses, that was something that took me a while to really develop. And I did that by, I had the opportunity to mentor a lot in accelerators, and that's where I got these skills. And then I was able to really translate that into actionable insights and actionable growth and that stuff. So that was really kind of a tough lesson. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And so as we get to the back half of 2018, you've grown this business. It's super successful. You've been doing this for 18 plus years. What made you want to sell? What made you want to step away from something you spent almost 2 decades building to start something new?
Yeah, I got more passionate about people, so my transition out of Corsica, moved me from, because the business, like as far as the business side and where it went to at that point when you're 200 people and whatever, it's a different type of business. It's not as agile as I like to be. I like to be agile, moving, whatever. So when you're spending, majority of your day talking about spreadsheets and that world, I wasn't enjoying that as much as the smaller form stuff and kind of, what I was passionate about. And so to want to do something new, it really was the same. It was like a reset button, where I started Corsica to take what I knew about technology and help people who didn't know about it, could use my knowledge or whatever. Now with Lions Guide, I did, this was kind of by accident. Someone just kind of challenged me. I wanted to go make t-shirts and like mugs like you got. I wanted to go do more of that. In fact, I'm kind of frustrated. I've not done enough of that because I still want to get some of that stuff out, just if nothing else for me. But I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the mistakes, the discipline, the leadership, and I know, and I'm sure you know this too, right? Like people with growing businesses run into that, and it's a challenging time. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like running a business, look, there's entrepreneurship, and you got to go be that hero and go grind and build and work and experiment. And I treat that's a work of art, man. Mm-hmm. Like you're piecing together your piece of art. But eventually that's going to become a business, and you're almost riding a Bronco bull, right? Like, you've got to corral that thing, and that's where people would come to me, go, Dale, like, I don't get how did you do it? And they would kind of ask me in the context of like, tell me the business info. And my response is always still, your business is yours. That's your piece of art. Mm-hmm. You're going to make that what it needs to be. I'm happy to work on you so you can make the best piece of art that you can make, because, if I could give you the business playbook, but unless you're ready to ride that Bronco bull, It doesn't matter. Unless you're ready to have that discipline, that high performance mindset, that leadership mindset, I could give you the playbook all day long, but you're going to fail to execute. You're going to quit. Yeah. You're going to get stuck. And so that's what I did the last 18 months. That I was doing that for my leadership team, and that got me out of bed in the morning, like knowing I was going to have one-on-ones with my leadership team or run a team meeting or whatever to go solve their problems. I love that shit, man. And that's what I want to do today, because I know there's a lot of folks out there that are either getting started or they're hiring or they've got a business of 2, 5, 10 years. Now they're in this, they're hitting a new ceiling that they have to grow. Like, they're getting stuck. They're like, I'm not sure why. And I think I was fortunate from the Marine Corps to have been trained in leadership and exposed to it. Certainly have done 20 years of personal development as well on top of that. And I enjoy helping those people that are stuck kind of in this world of, their bronc and bull of a business, and they know they've got to get better. They know they've got to change, and I come in and kind of help challenge them and help them grow.
I love that. So really the last 18 months of your role at Corsica, as you were exiting, really redefined your passion of what was next for you, which is why the Lion's Guide started, right? And I think this is really important thing you mentioned, because everyone's looking for a playbook, right? Something they could just execute on. And this is why when I wrote my book, the first line of my book is, this is not a fucking playbook, right? You can't give somebody a playbook and say, because what's going to happen is they execute on the playbook, whether they do it right or wrong is dependent on 1,000 factors. And one of two things happens: either they find success with it or they don't, and they blame the playbook. And that's usually it's not the playbook, it's in the execution. And the thing about people don't realize about execution is that it's done in hundreds of different ways based on you and your personality type. And that's why I wanted to create a guide. Like, here's things that you can do to show your authentic social soul online, which is going to grow a value-added network. There's 100 ways you can do it. And I give some tips and tricks, and I give some of the algorithms and stuff that you have to look at. But at the end of the day, authenticity wins. Because if you try to do trends and all this bullshit, like, it's great, you're going to grow, but you're not going to be talking about your passion, right? If you want to grow on TikTok from 100 to 250,000, use trends and dances and this stuff, but that's not what you're wanting to talk about. You have to figure out how to take those trends and make them work for the things that you want to talk about. And they don't always do that. That's like the playbook is do this. No, the playbook, the guide is, these are the things you need to implement. How do you implement it in your vision, in your passion, in your execution model? And that's why I think you built that out, is like, I can give you the playbook all day for these businesses, but it's no, let's work on you. And can you take that on and execute for yourself? And there's a book by, I think it's Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, is that sometimes the people that get you from 0 to 1 aren't the people that take you from 1 to 10. And for leaders to go from 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, you have to change your leadership style to continue to grow with that. I think you realized that, you saw that, you developed that. And at some point you're like, cool, I hit where I wanted to hit. Now I want to go help others do this thing. Hence the birth of the Lion's Guide. And we talk about the Lion's Guide, and we talk about the things that you're doing and this passion that gets you out of bed in the morning. What is the impact that you, at the end of the day, Dale Walls, when you lay down to have your last sleep, the impact that you hope that you left on this world?
Really to unlock people, right? I guess this is, how do we turn this into what you're saying, right? Like, people are looking for the answers, and I'm going, you've got the answers. Just go. Like, go do. See what's working, what's not working, and be making those constant adjustments, right? I want to, in kind of like behind the brand, right? Like you said, I want to be a guide to help people find their own answers, write their own, create their own work of art, and life and business, frankly. But the lion piece of it comes from like courage. I want to instill courage in people to get out there. And like, what I like about your book is, you're right. It's given some lessons learned, what to do, and probably more so what not to do, right? Like, and I highlight those things in reading your book, like, don't do this, don't be that guy. It's things to be like, don't be this guy, right? And so that I want to instill more courage in people to go find their own clarity and go execute, go and feel the fulfillment of it, right? We're in a very digital world today. We're not in the time where people, and I know people are, but everything we're doing is virtual. We're not like producing something we hold in our hands after, right? And so we have this challenge, I feel, mentally, with feeling fulfilled. I feel fulfilled when I get comments back from people in my workshops or one-on-one or whatever, going, since I've met with Dale, I've been X. I've been enabled to do this. I was stuck on that. I didn't know where to go, but now I've got clarity, right? That's what fires me up, makes me feel good. And that's what I'm doing it for. Like just to help unlock people, and get them going.
I love that. David Meltzer said that mentors kind of give you the answers, right? But coaches challenge you to answer the question yourself. And
Yeah.
it's important in our lives to have mentors to help through those little things to help us overcome. But it's even more important, I really think, to have a coach that's going to challenge you to execute. It's why, like in sports, right? Andy Reid, great coach, one of the best coaches in the league right now. Bill Belichick, another great coach, right? They're amazing. They have all these great things. They create these amazing game plans and playbook. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a team out there that can go execute and unlock that potential in them to execute, they're going to lose, right? The
Yeah.
best coaches in the world don't always win because their goal is to unlock that in their team and put the right people on the field to then go and execute. And that's similar to what you're doing. I love that you do that from a business standpoint and taking all these lessons because you have a lot to draw from your days growing up to being in the Marine Corps, which is a very elite group and very unique experience that not many people have, right? To be able to draw on that. And then how does that translate? And as you know, a lot of veterans have a hard time translating back into work life. And so how did you translate into being a successful entrepreneur that then scaled a multi-level business to then selling a business to then doing these things? And that's just so tough. And every journey is impressive because it's ours. It's that individual person. And that's why it takes a very unique perspective to unlock that. I love that that's the impact and what gets you out of bed because so many people in a very digital age are struggling with how do I overcome things like imposter syndrome. And a lot of times it's that. It's the fear that what if I get successful? What if
Yeah.
I do this right? Or the fear of if I make the wrong decision. And you have to lean into that fear and you need somebody in your corner that can help give you the courage. I love that you said you're not like, I'm not doing this to this. I'm doing this to give you the courage to make those decisions, win, lose, or draw, because you're going to learn and grow from it as a person and as a business owner. To me, that's super like exciting. And that is something that it's just fucking cool. And so many people need it with this age of like anyone could be a business owner right now. It's so easy to start a business. The hard part is scaling the business. And you help so many people unlock that potential.
Yeah, that's what like I don't know if it's still out there. I know I tried to use this a lot early on, but like my core philosophy is like I know like people ask me how like in essence how did you have success? I'll tell you quite simply. When I had courage and acted courageously, I had success. When I let my fears drive the bus, I had failure. Period. Hard stop. I can tell you when I've acted courageously, I've had success. And when I didn't, is when I've had my failures. And that includes, I think, like with business for your entrepreneurs out there, like there's going to be a lot of vendors and other people telling you to do it a certain way. And sure, acknowledge that stuff and learn, but always keep it in perspective of what are you trying to accomplish, right? So for tech, for me, we were a Microsoft shop. I got stuff from Microsoft all the time. Go campaign this, sell that, or whatever. But I always took it and said, how does this apply to my clients that I'm serving? How can they benefit from this? And where I see like tech companies, just as an example, make the mistake is they take that stuff. They're starving. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. And they go take it. But that's that vendor's agenda, right? What's your agenda and how does it fit? And that's where you just got to have the courage to go, here's what I'm here to do, and stay on that path. But the other side of the courage is having the courage to be honest with yourself about, are you on the right path? Do people really want or need that? Are you the best one to do like, so you can have that humility, right? I see other people like just die on certain hills because they just never pick their heads up to go, I'm wrong. Like, or I didn't see it this way. They're just trying to like, they have this initial vision. And I'm saying, we have this in the Marine Corps, like semper fi, always faithful. We have semper gumby, always flexible. You've got to be flexible. I knew as a tech company, our service delivery was going to change every 18 months, right? Because technology was rolling so hard and fast that I knew we needed to be agile. We needed to be flexible. We needed to be constantly evolving. There's no easier space to point the necessity of that out than tech, right? You've got to be constantly evolving. But I don't think that's tech doesn't have that cornered. Every business has to be, the world is evolving rapidly. So we all have to be, saying, hey, and it's simple, man. Here's how you do that. Entrepreneurs out there, what's working, what's not working, period. Just ask yourself what's working, what's not working. And I feel like that's where the courage part comes in. Go try things, test things, and reflect on it. Go, what worked, what didn't work, so that you can maintain the things that are working and analyze and correct the things that aren't.
I think that's really important. You need to have the courage to be self-aware, right? And it's the courage to look in the mirror and have that conversation with yourself as a leader on what you're doing and constantly evaluating that. I mean, pre-show, you and I were just talking about our own self-reflections with our business and what we want to be doing this summer and evolving what the Lions Guide is going to look like in 2022, and same with Rise Up, right? And so, just even having that conversation with you is exciting, that, you as a leader and coaching other leaders are continually having that self-reflection. That's such an important piece. And just because, a little sidebar, the Semper Gumby, those that didn't grow up watching the show Gumby are missing out on such a nostalgic piece of my childhood, with that character. I love it. And I had to bring that up because that's such a 90s reference. So all those out there that know what Gumby is, you're with me. If you don't know what Gumby is, go Google it, please, and watch an episode or two. It is hilarious, and it is my childhood in a nutshell. I know that kind of derailed it, but I just laughed. I couldn't help but share it. When you think about, we've talked a lot about courage to challenge these things and grow. And when you sit down and you look at a career over the last 20 years, building a business and then exiting it to starting Lions Guide, what was one of the major challenges that you had to overcome? Whether you answered it right or wrong, what was one of the things you look back? What was one of those major kind of inflection points in your life, in your business, that you realized that you need to make a change and unlock your own potential? Was there ever a moment in that?
Yeah, shit, man. 1,000. I think for me, just the discipline, of, and I this is said time and time again, you've got to take responsibility for yourself, right? You can't be pointing the fingers. You can't be blaming your team. You can't be blaming other people. And I'm sure just in my immaturity of leadership at some point, you're doing some finger pointing. But I think, and I don't have a specific instance to think of per se, but I can tell you, like, once you take complete ownership of it, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Steve Covey. So this goes back, like, says, before I can even talk to you about the 7 habits, you got to know that you're responsible, period. Like, we got to start there, and then we can proceed. Jocko Willink obviously has made mainstream of discipline and what he calls extreme ownership. I think that's probably today's best articulated version of that, but you're going to hear that everywhere. So you're going to see that. I mean, I've read personal professional development books from the 50s. They talk about the same shit, man. Like, you've got to take responsibility. And as a result, start checking your ego in that regard, right? The things that are happening, good or bad, in your business, you've got to look in the mirror first and go, hey, what have I done that attributed to this, right? And start there. You might say, hey, Joe on the team sucks. Well, who hired Joe? Chances are you did, right? So where did you go wrong? Did you make a bad hire? Usually is the case, right? We rushed to hire, and we have bad teammates, right? And I think that's a point that there's those situations where you need to kind of see the role you played in these failures or issues or whatever, so that you can work your way to, one, learn from it, but untangle it. And pointing a finger at everyone never works.
I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that. It was something that was learned along the way. And we still make those mistakes. We're never perfect. And it's just, we're never going to be perfect, right? Perfection is something we strive for. But I always have I always say, good is better than great. Sometimes we strive for perfection and we don't get good out, because once we get good out, we can actually iterate off that. You talk about agility a lot, and being, Semper Gumby, being ever flexible, right? Is if you wait till something's perfect, you're already too late. And by that point, it's no longer perfect. Get good out and evolve that, because when you do that, that allows you to have those conversations with yourself in the mirror about self-awareness, discipline, and growth. And I think so many people are waiting to be perfect and they hold off because they don't think something's perfect and they're afraid of the consequences versus getting good out and unlocking that potential, which is, I think, a lot of the story that you shared with me was you went and tried and did. And by trying and doing and learning and growing, you're able to unlock those things. And if you look at all those books, Chop Wood, Carry Water, right? That kind of methodology, it really is, you have to do the work and learn as you go, because that's the only way that you can actually grow. And when you grow, that's where you unlock the courage to go farther than you ever thought possibly. Talk about that glass ceiling. So I think that's just so
It's
impactful.
as I say, just ready, fire, aim. Sometimes you got to think ready, fire, aim. Sometimes you just have to take the shot to find out what corrections you need to make, right? Sometimes you just, and that's why clarity is a big part of the things I do today. Like sometimes you just need to know what do you need to do to get more clarity? Do that, right? You don't know the farthest answers of everything that's about to come, right? So just what do you know? Act on that, and then again, reflect and adjust.
Such a great point. So many things, Dale, I've loved being able to just chop this up with you and really talk more about the things that you've learned along the way versus, this or that. I think it's really important as entrepreneurs that we're not afraid to make mistakes, and we're not afraid to ask ourselves the hard questions. And that is something that many people are afraid of doing because we're afraid of being wrong. And sometimes being wrong is a good thing because it allows us to learn and grow quickly. So I really appreciate you sharing a lot of that and how it's, reflected in your life. And for those listeners that are just listening to this, if you haven't, you got to check out Dale's beard because it is more beautiful than mine. And I don't usually say that and get to talk to folks that have a more full, beautiful beard than mine. So check out Dale. We'll have links and have you give a chance to share where they can find you. But I always like to ask these questions as we close out these conversations. And there's a million paths that we can go down. And I want to give, people the opportunity to reach out to you to continue this conversation. But as we look at entrepreneurship right now, and as somebody comes to you and it's like, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I'm an entrepreneur, I just got started, what advice would you give them to somebody who's thinking about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think just know that you now own a business, right? A lot of people start a business because they know a trade. There's a great book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that really articulates this well. But you got to know, like the minute that you transition from worker or doer or employee to entrepreneur, business owner, like you have to know that that's your primary. Now, that doesn't mean you can't still be the one that delivers. I get it, like solopreneur, whatever. But you now own a business, and that's your primary objective, is to run the business and look at yourself as a resource, because then you can acknowledge that you need help or whatever, right? So I always encourage people to go, hey, look, I know you think because you swing the hammer all day and you can do it better than your boss, and you think tomorrow you're going to start your own business and start swinging the hammer for yourself. Now there's no one there to tell you what to do. Now you're in charge. Yeah. So now you're running a business. So it's a perspective mindset that needs to change. And oh, by the way, and this is where you step into my world, like you got to be a high performer because it's tough work.
Yeah.
Like we can sit around and judge our bosses all day long, but you're not walking in his shoes. And I can tell you he's doing a lot of work, whether he's doing good or bad, whatever, it's still a lot of work.
Yeah. I think it's really important for us to realize we complain a lot, especially those that sit in an office and complain about their boss and the way he or she acts or does things, or what you should or shouldn't learn. And it's really important that you're not walking in those shoes. And the minute you take ownership to be a business owner, it is all on you. And that is a huge change that you don't think about. It's like, oh, I can do this on my own and swing the hammer for myself and make all that money. But you don't think about all the things that come along with it. And so that clarity of, hey, I'm a business owner now, that changes the game. And I like that your primary objective is you own a business and everything that comes along with that. I always love asking this question. I feel like I might know what the answer is, but what is your superpower?
Discipline, I think in discipline entails a lot of things, right? we talked a lot about leadership, and I tell people, like, people run from discipline. They think it's this hard thing, and they think boot camp, talking about the Marine Corps stuff, they think, and I tell you, man, discipline is nothing more than self leadership, right? When you're in a leadership role, you're leading others. Discipline is the ability to lead yourself. What am I saying? Challenge yourself, hold yourself accountable, build your own systems, your habits, analyze, reflect, grow, right? Like, that's all discipline is. So I tell people all the time, like, I read 40 to 60 books a year, leadership, personal development. So when you read leadership books, and you might be looking at it from a lens of how to run an organization, how to manage people, it all applies to how you lead yourself too, man. And kind of pick your head up, take those blinders off, and all these leadership things that are out there, and they're prevalent and they're great. But know that discipline is just how you're using that stuff to lead yourself as well, to accomplish your own goals. So discipline.
I love that, because discipline's scary, right? Especially in an age where we are overwhelmed with messages. We have more distractions than ever. I get lost now in discipline, right? I have to use my calendar as my main tool of communication. If it's not my calendar, it doesn't happen. And having ADHD diagnosed and undiagnosed low grade OCD, if I don't have my system and on my calendar with the right colors, I lose it. And knowing that about myself it took me a long time to challenge myself to put a system in place to do that. And once I did that, it was a game changer, right? And so I love that you talk about discipline and discipline in yourself to challenge yourself, to be self aware and to ask your questions. Are you going to be able to do the work when the work needs to get done? And then how do you inspire others on your team if you have a team to do that? So I love that.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, easy leadership lesson: set the example. You want to inspire the people around you, show them how. Set the example, and then they'll follow suit.
I love that. So for those out there listening to this episode, you have to go check out. I'll make sure to link the Lions Guide podcast. A lot of great episodes in there. Dale, what is outside of your podcast and those things? What's another resource that entrepreneurs should be checking out? A book, another pod, some piece of content that you're like, this is something that every entrepreneur needs to take a look at.
I mentioned the E-Myth by Michael Gerber earlier. I think that's a good resource. Again, there's a lot of them, but that's one I'd say is the easy read to go through that. Once you get into business and things are rolling, and maybe earlier than later, I always like the Traction series. That's a good. They call it the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. I think that's a great place if you're truly looking for like I'll say a framework to how to build your business. I think that's a good resource to know. Awesome. Again, and treat it for what it is. It's a framework, but build your own.
Those are great recommendations.
Good reference.
And we've talked about this. I think a really key message that you've given us a lot around discipline and leadership is that you need to first establish clarity. Once you establish clarity, have courage to act. And once you act, lead the way. And I think that is it's something that I've seen you talk about and push and promote. And I think it's such an awesome way to look at leadership, right? And it makes it digestible. We think about leadership, and it's a lot of things to a lot of people. If we break that down to establishing clarity, and once you have clarity, having the courage to make decisions, and once you make decisions, lead the way and take that self-ownership, right? And that's where leadership and discipline come together through that simple motto. So I love that. And I've seen that as something I made note to bring up at some point in the episode. So I love that from you. How can we find you? If my listeners want to follow the conversation, follow up with you, learn more, get involved with the Lions Guide, where do they go and how do they find you, Dale?
Yeah, come out to lionsguide.com. I've got a ton of free stuff out there. So if you get logged in, I've got a back end full of just free training resources on leadership. Certainly have the podcast, Lions Guide podcast. I'm out on LinkedIn trying to have these conversations often, as far as building the business. I want to know what people are challenged with, and how can I, again, take the things I know and have experienced and help people along the way. So certainly working on engaging with anyone who could use my assistance or insights or whatever out there on LinkedIn. But yeah, so that's what I do. I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, other organizational leaders in the areas of high performance and leadership.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to link all of that out for the audience. And if you're interested, connect with Dale. He's always open for a conversation. He's got some amazing, incredible things in the paid version of the group and some workshops coming up. So if you're interested in those, let him know that you heard us on the Bare Necessities and connect with him and really take a look. He's got a lot of great offerings, a lot of things that you should check out. So make sure you let him know if you want to get involved that you heard him on the Bare Necessities. Dale, I had a blast chopping up with you, my guy. I can't wait till our next conversation because every time we talk, it goes in 100 amazing different ways that lights me on fire. So I appreciate you for coming on the pod and sharing some great insights and overview, and looking forward to the next time we get to collaborate. I really appreciate you, and thanks for being a part of Bear Nation.
Yeah, likewise. Happy to come anytime.
Awesome, my friend. Well, thank you all for listening. Until next time, stay well and rise up. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Bare Necessities podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us at the show. And I want to thank our friends over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. It's our mission to support and give back to the communities that we serve around the world. And we do this by giving every guest on our show a $10 donation to the cause of their choosing using the Fin platform. Until next time, thank y'all, stay well, and rise up.